Welcome. You've found Living Proof NDE, a place where we narrate true stories of near-death experiences that show us that death is not the end. Here we explore accounts of peace, love, and wonder, glimpses of life beyond this one, stories that reassure us that our departed loved ones, and even our cherished pets, are never truly lost. Join us as we step into the mystery and discover the living proof that hope and love endure forever. Because love and life never end, this is Living Proof NDE. This next story from NDE.org is of a near-death experience from a woman in the Philippines. It occurred in 1998. I was due to give birth to my third child. After being in labor for 11 hours, my doctor said she needed to do an emergency cesarean section. They did an epidural. Somebody put a mask on my face and I started shaking and couldn't breathe. I was in panic and tried to reach out to the doctor beside me, but everything went black. I thought I was dreaming or hallucinating, screaming without a voice. Things I didn't understand just seemed to be happening while I was floating or flying or traveling too fast. Ahead, there was a place of light, or a glow of very cool, unearthly colors, like a shade between yellow or gold or pale pink, but nothing like any color I know. The light was bright but not glaring, enveloping but with no heat. Events I cannot understand were going on too fast. It was like I was going through or flying past them, and I didn't want to go through that. I felt a presence with a voice, but not really a voice. Somebody was leading me through that tunnel of light to get out of it or into something. I remember myself arguing. The last thing I remember was telling him, "My baby needs me." I cry every time I remember this. Then the whole event just stopped like a hole opened in front of me. I woke up to find that the hole was the light on the operating table. The anesthesiologist was reviving me by patting my face repeatedly and saying, "You're okay, you're okay." At the time, I knew something happened during the surgery, but didn't know what it was. My medical records didn't show anything unusual, but I was in hospital for 10 days, which was not normal. I thought I had an unusual dream, but I felt it was special. This NDE occurred in 1990. The experiencer recalls being upset about having to come back to Earth after leaving his body and visiting the light.
My NDE in 1990 happened while in the hospital being treated for liver failure. Fluid had accumulated in my abdomen, and it was causing respiratory problems. I had been in there a few weeks and had not responded to any of the treatments thus far. The scans showed a mass that blocked the flow of fluid in the liver. A procedure for draining the fluid was attempted. It involved using a tube inserted in my throat and putting me on a respirator to clear the lungs. In addition, a drain from the abdomen directly was also planned. An anesthetic was administered, and I drifted, floating in a silvery bath. I heard someone say, "hemorrhage," and then the illusion of the bath disintegrated into blackness. All the pressure in my upper torso and head seemed to release and flow down and out of me. I recall thinking, "This can't be really happening. It must be an hallucination." There was a pinpoint of light in the distance, and I was attracted to it. It was very comfortable where I was, and it felt better the closer I drew to the light. I began to perceive some activity around the light and was curious about it. Suddenly, I was yanked back from the light and I was confused about what was happening now. There was another yank, and I heard someone say, 100 joules. I was confused again. Then it happened once more, and I heard 110 joules. I had worked with high-powered lasers and their energy is measured in joules, so I thought they might be using lasers. The feeling was like being pulled up through the center of the earth back to the surface. That was the only tunnel-like experience I had, and it was not pleasant. Now I was back in my body, but I couldn't move or feel anything, Only here, an injection of atropine was administered, then sodium carbonate. These revived my body further. I could sense activity restoring cells to life throughout my body. I had learned in the military that atropine was used as an antidote for nerve gas, but I was confused as to why it was used on me. It is used as a heart stimulant and for the respiratory problems. I came to later back in my bed angry that I had been so close and had been saved. There was still a sense of connection with that wonderful place I had just been, and I took a risk and initiated a reconnection. This time I was challenged to make an accounting of myself before I could proceed. I was defiant, angry, and only wanted oblivion. In spite of this, I was then given a choice of what my future existence would be. I chose to return and complete any unfinished business I still had with those dependent on me, my family, mostly. As this was considered a worthwhile task, I was guided toward the light by one of the feathery entities that were active around the light. Some sort of healing process then took place, and I returned to my body feeling both wonderful and sad at having to let go of that love and acceptance in the light. Next to my bed was one of those machines with the paddles that are used to revive cardiac arrests. I pulled the monitors and IVs out of me and started to leave the hospital to tell everyone the wonderful news. I got as far as the main lobby on the first floor before a guard stopped me, and I was returned to my room. The cause of my liver problems had been acute alcoholism. As a result of the experience, the addiction to alcohol was gone. I was almost catatonic, but I could sense what was happening around me, unable to respond. Sometime shortly afterwards, a nurse came over to me and said, "Usually there's some sort of message when this happens." Somehow, the liver began to function from that point on. The hospital staff was somewhat daunted by my recovery and didn't dare any further treatment. They did perform a biopsy to determine if the mass that blocked the liver was malignant, but the results were negative. No cancer, no cirrhosis scarring. The cause of the blockage had mysteriously vanished. Months later, after asking my doctor about it, he said that several people at the hospital were asking about my health, and he said, "You're a very, very lucky man, and there's no brain damage." I have some memories, not associated with the core experience of the light and feathery entities, of being instructed or prepared for my return. I knew there would be difficulties, but just knowing a little about them gave me the faith to prevail. Depending on what choices I made, the overall directions my life could take were outlined. Just to validate my experience, a few details came back with me. One was that Michael Landon would die of the same condition I had been saved from. About a year later, his condition was made public, and later he passed.
Our last NDE story today happened in Canada in 2016 to a woman named Daphne. I was admitted to the hospital with bilateral pneumonia and acute kidney failure. I was in an isolated room that was not monitored in the emergency department. I was waiting for a bed on the floor. The call bell did not work. I was on 100% oxygen with a respiratory rate of 28 to 35 and heart rate of 125 to 145 beats per minute. I had been to a variety of tests during the day, and when I returned, I was not monitored for the night. I started to have hypoxic hallucinations when I was sleeping, and I would wake up and watch bunnies chasing chipmunks all over the room. I tried calling the nurse to get help, but again, the call bell wouldn't work. I would drift off back to sleep and leave my body. I would be standing beside the stretcher. I knew that I was very close to death when I came back into my body, and I attempted to get the nurse again but couldn't. I saw the white tunnel and went through it very quickly. I exited into white light and saw a variety of beings off to the left-hand side. I told them I was not going to stop, that I was going further on. I turned to my right and found myself in utter blackness. I was very calm and remarked to myself, "I guess I am dead." I thought that I should tell someone that I was dead and headed to the nurse's station to ask them to look in room 16. I saw everyone who was on duty and told them. Then I realized that that was silly because I wasn't in a body. I was a light orb. Upon realizing this, I returned to the void. I then thought about who I should tell, and I thought of my mother, who was wintering in Harlingen, Texas. As soon as I thought this, I saw a window appear before me with a man and woman sleeping on a bed. I entered the window and stared down at them. There was no emotion, and I didn't feel any attachment to them. I said to the woman, "Well, I just thought that I should tell you that I have died and I will be going on." Then I went back through the window into the void. Back in the void, I wondered what to do next. I wanted to make sure that this really was the void. I went to the left and then to the right. Then I went up farther. But everywhere I went, I was just there. There was no way to reference where I was. I could only see darkness in 360 degrees. As I looked into the darkness, I had a feeling that I was glowing, but I couldn't be sure. As I looked into the blackness, I would catch glimpses of a blue grid, but the blue was so dark that it seemed to blend in with the blackness. I thought of all the places I could go and all the things I could do. As I thought, they appeared before me in little windows or television screens that were almost holographic. The images moved and had life to them. I started to think of everything I knew about the void and that it was all things potentially, but nothing materially. As I thought that the view exploded around me with little windows in 360 degrees into infinity, I was overwhelmed, so I thought that I would not make a decision right then, but wait here until I could make a choice. I then started to wonder who I was. Was I secondary consciousness, self, or my primary consciousness, my higher self? As I asked a question, I heard a voice by my right side. This was roughly where my right ear would be if I had a body. It said, "Who do you want to be?" I stepped forward and said immediately, "I will always be a student of Ramtha, the Enlightened One." As I said that, I noticed that the windows decreased in number from all around me. I wondered if anyone had found my body, and if I was ready to move on to another place. I looked back down to my body. As I did so, I saw my friends and family having to deal with my house and property. And the stress of doing this on them, I knew that I had responsibilities to go back and deal with things that were unfinished. I didn't want to go back, but I took a big sigh and said, "Okay, I will go back." I woke up in my body. I was in rough shape, and my condition had worsened considerably. But this time, the call bell worked, and I was able to get the nurse to come. I ended up being transferred to the intensive care unit. I stayed there for 10 days on a breathing machine. I hope you enjoyed these 3 NDE stories. If you did, please consider clicking the like icon and subscribing to the Living Proof NDE channel for more explorations into near-death experiences.